You are listening to Season 2 of the Humans of AI Stories Not Stats podcast, where Devi Parikh and Dhruv Batra talk to AI researchers to try and understand who they are as people, what their life is like, what they think about, what they're insecure about, what they get excited about. Questions that reveal the stories of their day-to-day lives. In this episode, Dhruv talks to Felix Hill, who is a research scientist at Google DeepMind. Felix talks about his recent preparation for a triathlon, his tendency for obsessive planning, his love for meditation and yoga, his European roots, and lots more. For more information on the podcast and episodes, check out the Humans of AI website linked in the description. And with that, let's get right to the episode.
Hey Felix.
Hi Dhruv.
Good. Can you hear me all right?
I think so, yeah. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, you're coming
Okay.
through fine. I'm not experiencing a lag or anything, so that's good.
Okay, yeah. I have a room where the internet is better, but the visuals are worse. So that's the trade-off.
Yeah, I think this is better than like having lack of a lag might be. This room is represents the void. It's fine.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, well, and also there's a bit of light, whereas the other room's very dark. So hopefully this will.
Okay. Are you ready to get started?
I think so. I mean, I don't know what to expect, but I guess that's the point.
Yeah, I mean, so I can tell you that 50% of the questions are same as last time. I've sort of created 50% new questions, but yeah. So,
okay.
Felix Hill, welcome to Humans of AI. Thank you for agreeing to participate. I have a sequence of questions for you. Some are lightweight and may not require much thought. Others may require a bit more consideration, in which case feel free to take your time to pause and think. You don't have to answer all questions. If you'd like to skip some, that's fine. But when in doubt, if you can err on the side of being open, vulnerable, transparent, we would appreciate it. Sound good?
It sounds great, yeah. And thanks for doing this. I think it's a great program.
Thank you for participating. So what were you doing right before this call?
So I had 30 minutes between, like, after my previous meeting and this meeting. And so I tried to, like, go to my to-do list and see what I could fit in a small amount of time. So I made a few revisions to a document and a paper that we're putting together. Yeah, but I'm pretty bad at using the small slots like this when there's a small gap. And also I was a bit apprehensive about this, so that was kind of weighing on my mind. So yeah, a mixture of that. I don't think I used the 30 minutes really efficiently. I think I probably got maybe 10 to 15 good minutes out of them.
Yeah, there's a Paul Graham essay on the maker and the manager schedules, and the maker schedules, like even if you put an hour meeting in the entire first half or the second half, just the existence of that meeting weighs on your mind and you're unable to get started on something that might require you a full day to finish or
Right. Yeah, I suffer from that a little bit, I think.
Yeah. What's your daily routine like?
It depends a bit on the day. So in DeepMind, we have a kind of no meeting philosophy on Thursdays. So that day was probably a bit of a different routine, although inevitably some meetings do go there. Otherwise, and another factor is that we've got more offices around the world and more collaborators in North America. So it inevitably means that, like, from early afternoon, that's when there's really meetings stacking up. So usually I have a couple of hours free, at least in the morning, without meetings. Yeah, I don't know if other people know, but we also, DeepMind generally tries to start at 10, at least when we were in the office. That was kind of the philosophy, and then maybe work a bit later. So there's various reasons for that, but I think I've probably continued with that routine, but I'm not really a morning person, but I've tried to use that morning time to really do some outdoor things or exercise, especially because, yeah, I don't think I really enjoy being locked in an apartment for long periods like we've all been over the last year. So that's been the time when I've really tried to force myself to get out and either just walk outside or run. I'm trying to get better at swimming. So just do anything like that. So I try and do that until about 10. Then either, hopefully a couple of hours of my own like experiments, usually a mixture of like thinking about organizing initiatives, meetings, reading papers, writing code and running experiments. I really enjoy doing that. And then meetings usually start unless it's Thursday. And then they go on till about 6 or 7 p.m. in UK time. That's usually, I try not to go beyond 7. So that's it. It also depends. I mean, it also depends a bit on if I'm like, to what extent I'm having a period of like real hard work where so if, I got my enthusiasm and also just general flow of research, I think for everyone goes in waves. So there's no way I could work like really flat out all year. So there's times when I just do like essentially what feels like my job. And there are other times when I'm like totally impassioned about getting something done. And then I'll just work like really like funny hours and, whenever, because I'm just like so interested in doing it. So it's a bit of both. Yeah.
So what's the favorite part of your day?
Oh, that's a really good question. So I guess it's, frankly, especially at the moment, I think it's probably not work. So it would be either that part in the morning, not when I'm trying to force myself to get up, but after having achieved something, like I'm trying to do like a triathlon, like a really short one, but I need to get a lot better at swimming and stuff. So I've been doing a bit of swimming, and the water's always cold and it's a lot of hassle to get in there. But once I finished and having some breakfast, I feel pretty sense of achievement. So that would be one time. And then another time is like, if I've had a good day at work, and I'm, it's one of those days where it feels like everything's finished up nicely, then relaxing in the evening, watching some television. There's not a lot else to do. I like watching football, so if there's football on, then that's something that's still going on in the world at the moment, so that's good. The news is not good. I try not to watch that too much. So yeah, those things. I think if we were in the office, I think more of the highlights would be the work-related side. But yeah, because I really do love like engaging with colleagues and a lot of that aspect. But I definitely don't. It's not quite the same when it's sat at home, when it's all remote. So yeah, I'll say non-work things.
Yeah, I know what you mean. The triathlon, is that the Olympic length triathlon, or is that shorter?
Yeah, so I mean, I really am a bad swimmer, right? So I've always run, and cycling technically is not too tough, at least, but swimming technically is quite a challenge. So yeah, I want to do an Olympic triathlon by the end of the year. I've entered like a sprint one, so half Olympic, and then an Olympic one. So let's see what happens. Yeah, watch this space. Maybe hopefully at least I'll survive. I'll probably be last out of the water though, let's put it that way. Or I'll have people to chase.
Yeah, that's such a positive outlook. Oh, good luck.
Yeah.
And what's the least favorite part of your day?
So I guess sometimes when I just look at the diary, and it's just, and I'm sure this, I'm by no means have the toughest time of this. I'm sort of, I guess I'm like, research-wise, I'm an equivalent of sort of a middle manager. So maybe that's hard. And I mean, every stage of my career seems hard, right? But maybe this stage is hard because I'm sort of half doing, trying to coordinate a bunch of things and do some bigger thinking, and then half actually trying to get other stuff done, low level stuff. And the combination of the two is quite a challenge at the moment. So when I look at my calendar, and also I do like space to think. So when I look at my calendar and I just see like a block, and it's especially if it's small meetings and lots of them, then I really do. I feel a bit of a sick in the pit of my stomach, and I just think that's the effort required to get through the next few hours is going to be about a lot, right? And then of course it always goes very quickly, and it's never as bad as you think, but it just feels like I know I'm going to be accounted for the next 4 hours. There's no, there's no way out the other side until the 4 hours have gone. And yeah, and that's kind of my fate. So that's so that's the feeling that I don't really like. And I never really felt that when I was running from one room to the next meeting people. It seems to be something that's specific to like video calls.
I know what you mean. There's a odd intensity to Zoom meetings that wasn't around in face-to-face, because you can switch rooms. There's a little bit of walking. You can maybe pick up a drink on the way you get there.
Exactly.
Maybe you talk to people first a little. Like just it's a bit more social when you're seeing people in person.
Yeah.
Do you set an alarm in the morning?
Yes, I do, especially if I'm trying to do the virtuous thing and do something, fit in something. But I have to say, even doing that, I wake at, just before 8 to do that. And I can do an hour of exercise and still start work before 10. So it's really a lot more humane in that regard than some jobs. And of course, that can change. We can be relatively flexible, and people with families, they get up earlier anyway for other reasons, and then hopefully they can stop earlier. So I do say that is, there's good and bad to all careers, but that flexibility is definitely a little bit greater than friends who have more like typical corporate jobs or, teachers and things like that. So like the getting out of bed in the morning thing is not too bad, and generally I love my job and I love the topic, so that helps as well, right? I'm just, most days I'm interested about what's in store, which is a good sign, I think.
Yeah. And do you end up snoozing your alarm?
Yeah, I'm definitely not entirely innocent with regards to snoozing. And I like sleep. I'm a big advocate for sleep. Especially if what's required is like is quite deep thinking or creative work, I think sleep's very important. So I try and get like 8 or ideally 9. That will shock some people, but I like 9 hours of sleep. So I try and achieve that. But of course, I haven't had children. I may well have children in the future, and then my world, I've been told, is going to be turned upside down. So I'll have to adapt. But that's something that does worry me, that prospect. Yeah, losing the 9 hours.
Are you a planner, or do you operate more on gut feeling and go with the flow?
I think I'm an obsessive planner. I wouldn't want to give the impression that I'm one of those people that's really organized. I like unexpected things, and I like sometimes being a bit obsessive, being a bit impulsive. But just planning seems to be just a pastime of mine. Like I'm always piecing together possibilities into the future, and of course that's good and bad. So I think I unroll the search and discover and like preempt some problems. So that's probably good. It's also just generally, I think, reasonable reasonable strategy for thinking of ideas. But it's also bad if it gets out of control. So you can come across as someone who's not always in the present, or is overthinking or ruminating about things all the time. And that's definitely something that can happen to me if my mind gets into an unhealthy state, working too much, or just generally worrying about what might happen. So I think from time to time I practice things like meditation, and I think one of the effects of that is to inhibit my tendency to plan. And I think generally I'm happier when that happens.
Destination?
Oh, I missed the start of that question. Sorry, Drew.
Do you struggle with procrastination?
I don't think I struggle as badly as some people with procrastination. I don't want to say that I've never experienced it. I definitely do. And actually writing is perhaps the hardest thing, especially we don't do that much writing relative to some research areas, I guess. But I've been trying to write a review article, and if someone has ever written a book, which I haven't, I imagine it's even worse. I feel some procrastination there. But generally speaking, I think my anxiety basically inhibits a lot of the procrastination by just making me constantly fearful of not being of wasting time or something. So I don't procrastinate, but it's not necessarily for good reason. It could, it's also because I'm not at ease, and so yeah, that's kind of how I feel about that. And actually, at home, I think there's probably a bit more of a tendency to procrastinate, because in those spaces between the meetings, because I really envy people who can take that 1 hour slot between the meetings and really, just say, I'm going to use it. I switch on to my own work between that, and then I go back to the meetings. I can get something done, but it's never the whole hour. It does take me time to ramp up and ramp down. Yeah.
But do you think those people really exist, or they're sort of these mythical creatures who we think are out there?
Dhruv, I've always suspected that Devi is one of those people. So, but that's partly because she's actually very good at communicating about methods for like doing better at that, right? So yeah. I don't know, you could tell me.
So she's definitely good at context switching, and she's good at focused work, but she also does not like fragmented days, and so she is extremely possessive and protective of her calendar, and so she will just decline meetings ruthlessly. You can see her get visibly upset if her meetings are running longer into the day, where she just won't have the time to actually catch up on work.
But that's good. I mean, I think being disciplined about it is part of the solution. Yeah. And another thing, I guess, maybe this is going off on a tangent, but declining meetings without worrying. I think we all. I don't want to suggest that some people are like more empathetic than others or something like that, but I often worry about what signals I might have sent to somebody by a certain response and things like that. So even if I do decline a meeting, there's probably still a little bit of work being done in declining the meeting, especially if I have to write a note to explain why. So then I'll worry about the note and things like that. So I think the solution to all of these is just to be so busy that you don't have time to think about anything.
Oh, yeah. Are you competitive, Felix?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. But hopefully not in a. I don't like beating other people. I think I'm competitive with myself. I don't know if that's. Yeah. I'm not sure. I don't like superiority over other people, but I really do like to beat my own expectations or something like that.
Yeah, that makes sense. So your offhand remark about you'll have plenty to catch up on when you exit the water suggested that might be the answer. Yeah. Is there a rejection or a failure that hurt particularly bad?
I mean, they all hurt a little bit. I think I'm getting better at not being hurt by them, and I think that's partly because it's as you become, it's just becoming numb in a way, because that's the game we play, and there is if you're doing a good job, you're giving yourself a chance at many things, but there's nobody can do a job where you guarantee success, but in the way that success is measured, I guess, in our world. So one has to be pretty robust to rejections. Is there a particular rejection that hurt? Honestly, yeah, I think so. I wanted to, I've always thought I would like to be an academic, like a professor. But for whatever reason, I wanted it to be in Europe. I didn't do a lot of looking for academic jobs in the UK, but I did a little bit. And then the DeepMind opportunity came up, and it for so many different reasons, it just fitted exactly. So, but I did feel not so much. I'm not even talking necessarily about faculty positions, but also about like fellowships where you'd have some funding for quite a few years and things like that. So a lot of I felt a little bit hurt by those. I think there's something quite subjective about a lot of ones, especially when the other pool of applicants is quite small and they're kind of known to you, so it's easy to compare. So something about academic hiring, and in the UK it's a little different to the US in the sense that jobs seem to come up a lot less. But partly it could just be that there's many more universities in North America, but there isn't really such thing as a round or going on the market or a round of job applications. It would be more like you're waiting for this one thing at some point, and hopefully it'll be in a place that you like. And so I guess I felt those. I don't think I took it too personally. It was more, it kind of shattered my illusions a little bit that there was, maybe it was just entirely naive, but I just wondered whether there might be a sort of ranking process and then some notion of, I've done all I can in my career, so therefore by whatever boxes or whatever you think, maybe that this ought to be something that I'm qualified for. But you realize that research is incredibly subjective to evaluate, and actually, there's a lot of everyone's research is brilliant, and everything could everything can be made like it really depends how you look at research. You could see anything as being superior to anything else, and that's something that's kind of beautiful about it. I think it was so I probably had this naive kind of thing about how universities recruit their academic staff in Europe, and it was a kind of a bit dispelled by my experience, maybe. But so I'm probably still a bit bitter about that, as you can tell. But that's I consider that to be a flaw of my own, right? Like I sort of still carrying that a little bit, and I should probably just like treat it as a learning experience and let it go. I mean, I'm really incredibly lucky with the way my career is currently panned out. So I feel nothing but, incredibly grateful for the way it went.
Yeah, makes sense. For me personally, I remember a moment where somebody pointed out, it was late in grad school and I was considering going on the faculty market, and somebody used the word, we are making vector comparisons between high dimensional vectors. And like that, like there's no scalar metric. Like there's no way to compare these two different vectors. You're going to come up with some metric, but there are many other metrics and projections along which the rankings are going to be radically different or even opposite. And that really clicked in my mind as the metaphor for what's going on.
Yeah, and I think it also reveals something else that's a bit skewed about my sort of self-perception, because I think I'm quite empathetic. So I think I'm quite naturally able to engage with the right range of people, because I kind of sometimes I think I know what this is, not in research but just in life in general. I'm reasonably good at understanding what their worries might be, or thinking through the position that someone else is in. But strangely, that doesn't transfer to sort of thinking about the panorama of research. So I think I'm really quite bad at predicting what sort of paper or what idea will take off and be a huge success, or that the community of researchers out there would find amazing, and what idea. I sometimes have these ideas myself, or ideas from other people that I think are just so brilliant and so beautiful, they can only be successful. And then if you look like 5 years later, nobody has paid any attention to them. So I think I'm really bad at seeing the research panorama and the value system. Maybe at a very macro level, I must be reasonable because I've sort of made my own path through it. But I'm very bad at judging the value system. And I think that probably also feeds into my feeling that how on earth could I not have been hired? I clearly looked at from my perspective, my research is definitely the right direction to be going in. And of course, that's that's a complete mistake. But so it's almost like I've got this, I don't have a very good theory of mind when it comes to the research, the mind of research, the research community. But I think I've got a reasonable theory of mind when it comes to just general human interactions. So maybe I should, I don't know how to improve that, to be honest. Constantly what's successful and what's not kind of surprises me.
Interesting. How do you usually make difficult decisions? Are there certain mental frameworks or lines of thinking you find yourself pursuing?
So I make at great cost and with lots of pain, I guess, is how I make this. I hate making big decisions. I don't, maybe shamefully, I don't use any sort of formal frameworks that I can think of. What I do is talk to. I'm quite sort of open, so I like to talk to people, right? So I just talk to as many people as I can, try and and then with time and talking, maybe the answer will become clear. Yeah.
Do you have an internal monologue?
No, I don't think so. No, I don't think so, but I do, sometimes I guess one of the mental states that you can get into, which I don't think is necessarily that good, is being very self-aware, like sort of aware that, things are going really badly for me at the moment, or things are going really good for me. So I guess I have an ego, like I guess most people, and it's good if that ego doesn't become too powerful, so that the importance of yourself or your own journey is like somehow just seems much more important than all what's out there in the world and all the stuff that's really important. So so things like meditation and stuff are very good for reducing that, as is just generally getting out and about and seeing the world. And of course, that's something that's much harder to do now. So that's, I guess, that's one of the challenges. Things get out of perspective if you're in your flat all day.
Yeah. But more specifically, you don't find yourself thinking through language. You don't find yourself verbalizing your thoughts. They're sort of more abstract.
Very rarely. Occasionally when I'm playing sport, like running, I might say, come on, or something like that. I might actually say something to myself there. Yeah, but I think that's probably just something I picked up from, from cliches or watching it in films, or maybe some coach or something. And so, it's not something I naturally have a tendency to do. Yeah. So that's a no for the Fodor's theory of, sort of
language
mentally,
is thought. Yeah.
Language is thought. Yeah.
Are you a visual thinker then? Do you have pictures, diagrams?
I think more so, yeah. And before I did computer science, I did maths, and I definitely found, most of maths was some sort of spatial mapping of if the problem indeed wasn't geometry, then it would involve some sort of approximate mapping of things into some space, and then thinking about them there, and then putting it back into symbols.
And you find you're able to mentally rotate maps and change coordinate systems?
Well, I guess I don't know if I'm exceptional at that, but I guess I would pass the whatever they are on the IQ tests, the Roger Shepard psychology tests. They're very nice. Yeah, I think I could do okay at those.
And what do you tend to think about when you're not actively trying to think about something? What goes on in the back burner, so to speak, to the extent that you're aware of it?
I like to daydream. I like to, I like to think about my hobbies. So I think about, go back to say the triathlon and think about my swimming technique, I'll think about football and things like that. So I like to sort of actively daydream around around topics that I know are nice, so that I'm putting my mind into kind of things that I think it's happy and kind of distracting to think about. But obviously there's a tendency to always think about work, and that's almost like inertia, just because we do it for so much of our day that it makes sense that, I guess, that your mind. So it's not that I try not to allow it to have entire priority in my mind, but of course sometimes it just happens.
Are you happy with the number of close friends you have?
It's funny because I would always have said yes, and I think I'd still say yes. But in the last year, of course, like it's been harder to like maintain friendships, and you know, especially I don't know. I was going to do a horrible gender stereotype, but it's based on my partner. But she's better at keeping up with. Yeah, I mean, I shouldn't make these generalizations, but I guess I will talk about myself only, and I'll say that I'm, you know, and some of my friends as well, we don't necessarily communicate unless we've got something to communicate about, which is perhaps not the best, because it's sometimes good just to be in touch, right? So, and that's something I think that you get if you have, often you get just because of physically coming together, but we haven't been doing that, so you have to plan to get together, and in that case, you've been missing out. So I am happy with the number of close friends I have, but I'm not happy with how much I've seen of them over the last 18 months.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. I think a lot of people will likely be able to relate to that. What are you insecure about?
I guess I'm insecure about. I mean, I think I've got. It's hard because at times I feel very insecure, but at other times I'm aware that I have this inherent belief in myself, which allows me to keep going. It allows me to have ideas, for example. So as a researcher, or not to have ideas, but to stick with ideas. So as a researcher, you kind of sometimes need to, like, you know, it's almost like each new idea is like starting a little business. So you need to kind of sell it to some people and get support for it and get interest. And I've got enough belief in myself to get through those hurdles. I think if you're actually starting a business, especially, you know, say a business that requires a lot of investment and in capital and things like that, probably the level of self-belief required is even greater. And I'm not sure I've got that much. I just, you know, there's a load of stress associated with those sorts of risks, and I'm not sure I could handle those. Yeah, and I guess I'm insecure. I'm not as good at. I'd like to be better at sort of multitasking. So I feel like I can only be good at, say, 3 or 4 ideas. Like maybe if we talk in terms of papers, it's horrible to talk in terms of papers because I kind of a concession that they are the currency of research. But if we talk in terms of papers, you know, I can only really get passionate about and really put my heart and soul into, say, you know, 3 or 4 papers a year or something like that. And I see people that seem to be able to, you know, to do something of the order of 10 times that. And I guess I'm insecure about my inability to switch codes and sort of, yeah, and manage that sort of level of output. Having said that, of course, a lot of the people I really admire only have a small number of contributions per unit of time, but they're always very high quality. And I think maybe that's something that, you know, it makes more sense to aspire to, particularly if the gross number of papers that one produces is not necessarily part of the, you know, metrics by which you're being judged. So in that privileged position, I think I'm happy with my policy of trying to do a small number of things very in depth and well, but I am a bit insecure about it, and partly, you know, when one sees all of the, you know, the social media and things like that, it can easily add to one's insecurity. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of good things about Twitter, I guess, but I think there's a lot of I struggle to handle it at times, just because it sets my mind thinking, and sometimes I feel I could be it could make one feel that they should always be doing much better, and that can be tough. Yeah, and of course you have to remember that it's not even necessarily the same people, but someone on Twitter is always succeeding. So if you're having a bad day, then you're bound to see someone succeeding at something, and that can also make you feel like more insecure.
You take a high dimensional space and then you start taking max along each of the dimensions, and it's a different argmax, and then you don't worry about the argmax, but you compare yourself to the max along all of these dimensions, and then that's a really, really harsh comparison, like an unrealistic comparison.
Exactly.
Do you think you're average, above average, or below average happy compared to the people around you?
I'd say above average, which is really lucky to be able to say that, but maybe just marginally. I think if we were not in the situation we're in with the pandemic and lots of other challenging things going on in the world, I could be more than just a bit above average. But I do feel really lucky. I feel really lucky to have a job at this time. Lots of people have lost their jobs. I feel really lucky to be so far healthy with the situation. And it is a job. I do get to work in something that I'm really genuinely fascinated by, which is again not true of even all of my friends. So I'm aware of that. So I think it would be a real shame if I wasn't above average happy, but of course there are periods when I'm not, and I totally wouldn't want anyone to watch this and feel that it's very unexpected that they're not feeling happy, because I'm well aware that circumstances alone, like what might be the sort of circumstances I've just listed, I could easily still not be feeling happy at the moment. Like it's pretty tough. Like even just sitting at home doing AI research is pretty tough, like at times, right? So yeah, but fortunately at the moment I'm feeling okay. I'm feeling quite happy.
What is something surprising about you? Something that the rest of us who perhaps only know you from a professional context may not guess?
Well, that's interesting. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, what's surprising? I've done quite a lot of meditation and yoga. So I did this Vipassana retreat where you're silent for 10 days. Why did I do that? I was having quite a lot of anxiety. So, I guess it's not that unusual. I'm sure it's totally not that unusual amongst us sort of researchers, but I get very anxious, and that can lead me to feel depressed at times. So doing things like meditation was really helpful for that, as is doing things like sport and stuff like that. So keeping that going during this lockdown period is very important. So yeah, I guess those things might be a bit surprising if people thought, because I'm quite an extrovert and relatively confident on the outside, so maybe that is a surprise. And something I'm relatively happy to talk about also, because at least for me, like, those sorts of issues, it's helpful to hear other people talk about those issues is helpful to me. So hopefully this will be helpful to someone else.
Yeah, interesting. I've heard about Vipassana growing up, and the 7-day or the 10-day. There are different length stays that you can make. I've never done those. I've imagined what it would be like, but I don't think I have a good idea that I can even imagine just like not talking to anyone, no access to any technology, book, nothing. That must have been different, very different.
Yeah, so I would say that I did it before I went to grad school in a sort of a little gap after my sort of initial career. So I didn't slot it into an otherwise very busy life. I kind of did it over a period of being in India for a month and generally not working. So that probably made it easier. I wouldn't say it was easy. It definitely wasn't easy. it was very boring, but I saw it as a challenge. And by the end, I felt incredible. I really did feel like really, for the next 3 months after that, I felt really peaceful, relatively, and really nice. Anyway, Jack Dorsey, the CEO of Twitter, he does it once a year now. So I think that going from a busy job to just doing that straight away and then back to the busy job, that must be really challenging. Yeah, but I would recommend it. I think it helped me a lot, and the technique in those 10 days, I think you learn some nice techniques for meditation that you can always use. So it's kind of like an investment in the future. I've done shorter retreats since then, but I'd actually probably be a bit nervous to go back into the full 10 days, but maybe one day I will.
And conversely, what is something about the world that surprises you?
I think I'm surprised that there isn't. So I'm surprised that there isn't like a sort of a selection of humans who are just better and organize things. So I think I always thought this growing, as a child and even as a young adult, that there was some sort of subspecies of humans who were at the top of all organizations and kind of just made them work. But now I realize that that there isn't really, and that's nothing. I should add that this is absolutely not. This is not a reflection of my current situation or anything like that. I mean, actually, quite the opposite. I think DeepMind is, of all the organizations I've operated in, it's incredibly like really well organized and really superbly run. But I've had lots of experiences with other organizations and just governments and things like that, and I think that surprised me that that actually these people are just like you and probably often even more inept, and they and somehow the world still works. At least it works for a lot of people, but then of course for a lot of people it doesn't work. So anyway, I just found, I think I had this naive. I think a lot of the other thing was that I think it's part of my parents' attitude, which comes out of this Western European post-war attitude, and actually US would have had this as well, which is that things were just generally getting more correct and more right and more organized, and the world was getting sorted out as time passes from the Second World War. And of course, at some point in the early 2000s, or whenever it was, this kind of, for the West, for people born in these countries, we started to learn that this was just not the case. And then lots of things happened in the last 5 years that have really confirmed that that's not the case.
Yeah, I think there's a coming of age moment when you realize that the adults are making it up as they go along, that there are no grown-ups in charge, that we are the grown-ups.
Yeah.
What is something that you have changed your mind about? Well, maybe it could be recently or in distant past.
Yeah, that's a very good question. I don't think I've got a good answer. Yeah, I mean, that's not to say I don't. Hopefully, I do change my mind. I perhaps should change my mind more. But I honestly can't think of a good answer to that one. So we'll move on.
No worries. How do you imagine your retirement?
Yeah, that's a great question, actually. I was thinking about that the other day. I hope that's not too, I think that was just a one-off moment. I worry because I don't think I'd be good at doing nothing. And so I'm not sure that an entire retirement would ever really be optimal. But then I feel, very fortunate that the sort of work we do, it should be possible to do a version of it, for as long as one wishes, right? So it doesn't have to be paid or, a big budget or anything like that. But it should be possible to think about research and I'm interested in neuroscience and these sorts of problems. I don't think they're going to be resolved in my lifetime. So hopefully there'll still be some stuff to do by the time I reach a retirement age. Who knows? Yeah. So I'd like to have a lot of stuff to think about. And then also, I made a big investment in my retirement when I learned how to play golf. So that's something I might do. And I'd like to be somewhere warm. So I feel like somebody from a warm country trapped in a British person's body. That's how I often feel. So yeah, so I'd like to indulge that side of myself and be somewhere sunny.
Of the mindset that pain and misery and bad environment and weather is what builds character.
No, I mean, I definitely don't think it builds character. There's an argument for saying it's somewhat correlated over history. It's somewhat correlated with like more economic output or something like that. But firstly, I'm not sure that's the right thing to be measuring, and also, I think that's probably an old yeah, that's probably an old kind of effect, if it is an effect. So, having said that, I've never lived at length in a beautiful climate and had to go to work every day for long periods. So I don't want to comment on how it makes people feel in that situation. But I would say, for example, that there's many great AI research going on in Southern California and places like that, and they have beautiful climates. So must be possible.
Yeah. You could even try your parent company. They have offices there.
yeah, yeah. Thanks for the tip. I'll think about it. No, I'm honestly, I actually do feel very European. That's one thing I do feel more than that's the one identity, the one tribe I might attach myself to. I don't know why. I just like the mix. I just like the mix of different languages and stuff all in that place. And I kind of thought the way Europe, I mean, with a lot of help from, I guess, America and other places. And I should say historically that Europe's been responsible for many bad things in the world. So I definitely don't want to make this continent out to be perfect, but I do think it was kind of a high point in evolution, the conduct of humans after the Second World War around that part of the world where, where for whatever reason they put a bunch of stuff behind them and said like the most important thing is to not get into conflict again. I think that was pretty cool. And yeah, it seems to, unfortunately, a lot of people seem to have forgotten that, including people in my country. So yeah, so I guess I feel a bit more European than British.
Interesting. Onto hopefully a shorter time horizon. Do you have a concrete prediction on when the world might open back again post-COVID? And I realize that the world is likely too broad, so maybe you could narrow it to whatever local context you'd like to venture a guess about.
Yeah. I mean, it's going to be one of those things where everyone's going to sort of make an error, and it's going to be longer. But we hope everyone's thinking in terms of by the autumn in the UK we can start to be a bit more normal. But the big problem in the world is in countries where it's going to be hard to vaccinate everybody, and that's the real challenge. So I think that's the thing that everyone should worry about. And actually, in particular, countries that have overcome the problem should turn their attention to countries that haven't, to try and contribute to that. And let's see if that happens. That's what should happen. So I would say in certain fortunate countries by September, October, but I don't know if you look at the history of I mean, sort of like these pandemic illnesses, polio and things like that, they existed in certain countries 40 years after they were eradicated in others. So I hope it's not like that.
Yeah. Do you think there's a point to life and our existence?
I think for almost all reasonable interpretations of the word point, then the answer is no. Yeah, but I'm okay with that. That doesn't mean that I don't feel like I have a purpose or I don't feel or a moral compass or any ethical things or things I want to achieve or things that I think are right or wrong. I think I have those things, but I don't feel that a point in the sense of like a bigger point or that no, I think that there's a danger of being like a bit also anthropocentric or something if you answer that question. No, it's just what happened. It's just what happened when all those chemicals came together in somewhere in space.
So what do you find meaning in?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think that that's a really good question. Where does one, if you don't sort of back off to a point, then where does one get one's ethics from and values? I guess. Well, it's definitely the case that. Yeah, I don't know. This is a very difficult question. I just know that I have quite a clear view of, what I think the right things to aspire to are. And equally, I have a clear view of sort of like what drives me, what makes me happy. And so I think it feels like I sort of end up in some sort of compromise between being entirely selfish and being a bit less selfish, but still selfish, and trying to sort of like do the right thing. So yeah, I guess, I don't know. And then the other thing is I'm very driven by sort of discovering or learning like new things for myself, but also hopefully, so for example, language is quite a mystery, right? And there's stuff one can learn about language. So hopefully I can contribute in a really small way to our understanding of what language is and how it works and how we learn it and things like that. And I guess I'm driven by that, but yeah, maybe you've discovered maybe that I don't really know. I don't really have this sort of bigger purpose or something. Yeah, hope that's not too big a revelation.
No, I mean, I think for a lot of us, we may have intuitive sense of what we find joy in, but have a hard time articulating it, and what we have an intuitive sense for what makes us happy, what makes us fulfilled, content, peaceful, and we maybe can translate that into some local decisions and actions, but trying to articulate a clear set of rules and guidelines for ourselves may be a much harder task. So
yeah,
on to perhaps an even more philosophical question. Pineapple topping on pizza. Yes.
Oh, absolutely not. That's like there's very few foods that I don't like. I really love all foods apart from like just inexplicable combination of something sweet with something savory like that. I just think it's intolerable.
All right. We've found the one thing that you will not tolerate. Describe something that made you smile this week or today.
Like we can go out a little bit more now, and so like I honestly, this is going to make me sound like I'm trying to play the game for some extra popularity, but it's pretty cool to see other like kids and families and stuff. So just waiting in the like shopping line, and just their reaction to someone else's dog, just the excitement of children at dog. I don't know, these things are probably things I wouldn't have noticed 18 months ago, which I should have noticed, but I wouldn't have. So I like that. I think at the moment I'm really any people contact makes me like that incidental. And I didn't even engage with these people, right? I just maybe a smile and whatever. But yeah, I think I'm just really enjoying all the things that we haven't had for a year or two. So like, yeah, that makes me sound really virtuous. I'm I'm definitely not, but at the moment, that does actually definitely does make me happy. Yeah.
Makes sense. And my last question, why did you decide to do this interview with me?
Well, there's two reasons, right? One is, or three. So one is I love talking. Two is that ego is there, right? And I quite like talking. I'm just gonna be frank about it, right? I don't mind talking. It's okay to talk a bit about myself. I kind of enjoy that. And obviously I really like your work, crew. So it's like, that it just felt like it would be a fun conversation. And then I guess the final reason is that, yeah, I kind of thought if I can talk a little bit about the stuff that worries me and the stuff that I'm not, like my concerns and maybe stuff that I found difficult, then that actually could be pretty useful for, say, students or other people in this strange world of research that we inhabit. It could be useful. It's not like I'm the world's greatest researcher, so it would have more impact if the world's greatest researcher came on here and told you all your worries. But at least I did it. And hopefully that's sort of like actually gives people more belief in themselves and more confidence and not less. So yeah, that's the third reason.
And thank you for doing that. Going back to our previous discussion, the world's greatest researcher probably does not exist because we're comparing high dimensional vectors to high dimensional vectors. And
that's true. You're absolutely right. I need you to remind me, like once a week. I'll play back this little part, and I was Drew's wisdom on high dimensional vectors and imposter syndrome.
So Felix, those were all the questions I had. Is there something that you'd like to talk about and a particular aspect of your life that we couldn't get to that you think we should discuss?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, I don't think so. Another thing that's been worrying me a lot recently, so while we're doing the confessional, is, I worry about my parents. So obviously lots of most people's parents are older than them. And my parents are quite old. Obviously, COVID's not a good combination. And generally, my mum's not been very well for a long time, so I haven't been able to visit her. So I think that's also, for people of a certain age, in this sort of, I don't know about your situation, Dhruv, but you get to this age where, they're not looking after you anymore so much as you got to look after them. And that's one of my main worries at the moment. But lots of people are in that situation, and so hope, fingers crossed, we can sort of at least come face to face soon, and then that'll help. But I should say that life is easier for me in the sense that I work in the country I'm from, right? So lots of people are really separated by enormous physical distance from their families, and that must be incredibly hard as well. So yeah, difficult time for all of that stuff.
Yeah. And likewise, I haven't seen my parents in about a year and a half now. They're in India, and the cases in India are particularly bad right now. It's beginning to hit, like early on in the pandemic. India, while it was early on doing okay and then slightly worse, it was still it never hit close to home. Like it was hard to find parents of friends who had gotten it. Now it seems like it's a fairly common occurrence for people to know someone, and to know someone at their place of work and at their place of residence, in their immediate circle. So I share that concern. Hopefully things will go back to normal. We'll be able to see our families. And
I feel a bit powerless at times with this because yeah, I mean, even mine were just an hour up the road, but I couldn't go there, you know. So it's like, and then obviously India is even further. So yeah, well, all the best. I hope, I hope the fingers crossed things are okay. And yeah, and hopefully we can, you know, everyone will do this again in 5 years' time, and it'll be a more positive outlook around the world.
Hopefully. And on that note, well, I hope you get to see your parents soon. I hope things we can all look forward to that, to seeing our loved ones. Thank you for doing this, Felix. This was
No, thanks for doing it, Dhruv. It was really great. Yeah. Okay. Take care.
Bye.